Members, please rise. Members, the Lord Mayor. City of Adelaide Council meeting on Tuesday the 28th of February 2023. The Lord Mayor is in the chair. This council meeting will be streamed live and recorded for publishing to the internet. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside Australia.
Good evening. The Council acknowledges that we're meeting on traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pays respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships with the land. We acknowledge that they are of a continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today, and we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations people who are present today. The Council further acknowledges the vision of Colonel William Light in determining the site of Adelaide and the design of the city with its 6 squares and surrounding belt of continuous parklands, which is recognised on the National Heritage List as one of the greatest examples of Australia's planning heritage.
Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon the works of the City of Adelaide. Direct and prosper its deliberations to the advancement of your glory and the true welfare of the people of this city. Amen.
I'll now ask all those present to stand in silence in memory of those who gave their lives in defence of the country at sea, on land and in the air. Thank you. Please be seated. Members, we're all present this evening. We have no apologies or leave of absence to record. I move now to item 6, which is confirmation of the minutes. Moved by Councillor Davis. All those in, seconded by Councillor Ho. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We have no deputations or petitions this evening. I'm moving straight to committees' reports, and the first item is 9.1, which is the City and Community Services and Culture Committee. Councillor Giles.
Lord Mayor, I'd like to move the terms of reference in it, but I'd like to make a slight amendment to them, and I just can I move them in that way? Sorry. Oh, I would like to add in another dot point in relation to homeless housing policy.
Tell us the dot point and we'll get a seconder.
Okay. So I'd like to move it in a slightly amended form with adding a dot point underneath community development and quality community services, which reads a housing policy that encourages diverse housing stock that meets a range of needs and lifestyles, including the most vulnerable.
It's rather a long dot point.
Well, I'm just, it could be just housing policy if you like to.
Would it just be possible to have housing policy and we can expand afterwards? Seconded by Councillor Kouros.
Well, can I speak to to it first.
Can we have a seconder first?
Yep.
So thank you, Councillor. We have a seconder. Councillor Snape, please speak to it.
Okay, I'll speak to it. The reason is that at this committee meeting, the Lord Mayor asked a question about when we referred to the terms of references, including functional zero homelessness. The Lord Mayor raised the question about where does housing fit, and so I went away as the chair of this committee to have a look at where it actually does fit. And in the strategic plan, it clearly states that the whole question of housing stock and diversity actually fits under the Thriving Communities section of the strategic plan. And so I just wanted to put housing policy in there in order to be able to have this committee be able to sort of oversee the development of a housing policy, as we've just previously discussed in a workshop.
Thank you. Councillor, did you have a question?
I have no problem supporting this, but I do have just one thing that I would like to have a question to. When we decided to set up the committees, we had the committees and we talked through, and then it comes through to council. I thought that we vote during the committee. Are we then what we vote there can be undone here or changed here? Is that what we're saying? Because I thought the whole point of having the committee is to flesh that out.
I understand that the committee is a Section 41 committee, isn't it? Which means the terms of reference have to be set by the council. So we have to endorse them here, just the terms of reference.
So that would mean that anything that comes through the committee can be undone in council?
Absolutely, yes.
Right. Okay.
Everything's endorsed by council.
In saying that...
There's no delegation to make decisions.
I can see that now. Housing policy is across all of our portfolios, so all of our committees. So would that mean that we'll need to adjust all of them?
I think not, but can I have advice through you to maybe one of the executives?
Thank you, through the presiding member. I think the reference to housing policy would be in relation to the remit of this committee.
So, is there further comment, or do you want to speak against the motion?
No, I'm happy or for it, but I'm just... Sorry, Lord Mayor. I'm happy to include it, but I'm just trying to understand the context and where it is in this committee and how it would fit across all the other committees, because I can see that also being in review of our strategic plan. I don't know if this falls in this committee, I'm getting all confused. Also in our infrastructure, how that works within the housing, within the infrastructure, and I'm just wondering how we're going to work all that through with all committees.
My understanding is that there are very few policies that are really standalone policies. Everything has cross-portfolio involvement, so that housing relates to health, family welfare, mental illness, alcohol consumption. So I think that there is always overlap. So unless you have contrary view to this addition to the terms of reference, did you want to speak to that, Councillor Snape? No. Just. In that case, we'll put this motion with the as amended. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. 9.2 is the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, and there is a recommendation. Councillor Couros, would you like to move that? Moved by Councillor Couros, seconded by Councillor Davis.
I'd like to speak to the motion.
Just one moment. Would Councillor Couros like to speak to it first? Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. I do think it's very important to note what's actually happened in this committee. So it was on the 13th of December that this council chamber, well, six councillors, resolved to stop any further expenditure on the Rymel Park pond. Now, that was in December, the 13th of December, and that motion was moved by our Deputy Lord Mayor to be brought back to a committee and now being presented to this council meeting to now go out to tender, as we normally should. That represents essentially a 2.5-month delay in starting a project which is extremely time sensitive, and the money is only available from the state government. I remember earlier in that exact committee, councillors asking, why can't we get projects done? Why can't we deliver for our residents? And why can't we move things forward? And why do we spend all this time wasting time talking and debating about these kinds of issues. Now, the question the Deputy Lord Mayor had at that meeting was, has there been an increase in the amount of funding? And the answer from the administration was no. So the question that the Deputy Lord Mayor was seeking an answer to could have been achieved by sending an email to the administration, and that could have easily been clarified. In future, if we want to achieve something as a council, we can't delay motions and projects such as this, particularly when there's time sensitive, when there's a significant amount of conflict of those works with other social and public events, so that we can ask a question that was simply no. And it was an extremely simple and clear answer. Now the administration has been told to go out to tender for a project that was essentially approved by the last council, and that timeline was set up. And I don't think that is the way that we should proceed. And to the 6 councillors who supported that, I would think in future, think very carefully about motions which could appear to be simply to accommodate one person, but really only serves to delay major infrastructure projects. I'm glad
Councillor,
now
I
to
think
see this
you
project
might
progress.
try to be a little more careful about reflecting on the motives of your fellow councillors. I have given you some liberty on this occasion, but I think if we're going to continue in this vein, it will be counterproductive. Councillor Snape.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to put forward an amendment, if I may, that Part 2 be considered Part 2A, and then a Part B, 2B, be added. And Part 2B would be acknowledges community dissatisfaction with the previous council's divergence from related community consultation. And I'd seek a seconder for that amendment. Thank you. So it is acknowledges community dissatisfaction with the previous council's divergence from the related community consultation. I'm not in any way stopping the motion. I'm supporting the project going ahead. I'm just noting that the consultation asked for a different option, and the previous council did not choose to do that. I'm supporting us going ahead. We've got the funding now, but I'm just wanting that to be noted.
Lord Mayor, that means that he would need to add Caterpillar in that equation as well, because they supported the project. So he's not only is he condemning the previous
I'm just
council,
reflecting
but
on
he would
whether
also
that's
need to condemn
ultra
Caterpillar
vires. Can we
for
just have a
approving the
moment?
project as well.
Can we just have a moment while I reflect on the purpose of the wording? We can acknowledge community dissatisfaction with the previous council.
I'm happy to remove the term previous council, if that's a sticking
But
point.
I think you mean divergence. Sorry, I was just worrying about the spelling. Is that an acceptable motion, do you think? Acknowledges community dissatisfaction.
I would say Caterpillar would have to be included in that, because they did approve the part of the lake as well.
Point of order.
I again don't want to reflect on the motives or the behaviour of previous councils. I just think it's discourteous. So let's just try and have the wording acknowledge the difficulty in, could it be acknowledging the divergent opinion about the community consultation?
Effectively, yes.
Your Worship, I think, wouldn't it be better to say that the community, that we acknowledge that the community's first preference was for a different option, and this was their second preference?
I'm happy to
I think it was by
accept
5%.
that wording.
Yes, I would be happy to accept that amendment, just to tidy up the English a little and
But-
make it less reflective.
Yes, very happy to. Thank you, Henry. Councillor Davis.
Can we just retype this, please? Can we just get that on the screen?
So, Henry,
Could you repeat it, Councillor Davis, please?
Acknowledges that the community consultation preferred another option. I think it was for a full wetland, wasn't it?
Yes.
Is that right? Is that even correct?
Narrowly preferred another option.
I'm not even sure if that's correct over the...
Narrowly preferred another option.
I
Would
think
you be
it was-
happy with that,
I'm
Councillor?
not accepting the word narrowly.
You don't want narrowly?
No.
Whoops, the whole thing's gone now. The community consultation preferred another design option. Can we have design option? Sorry, I hate doing this on the screen. There we go. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconder, Councillor Giles. I think we understand the issue.
Can the administration... Sorry to interrupt, Your Worship, but can the administration comment on that community consultation, whether that is actually accurate?
Yes, I think it was a narrow consultation.
Thank you. The numbers were close in relation to whether it was a full wetland versus an ornamental lake option. We then went out for round 2 and we ended up with a slightly hybrid model. So, Tom, I can't remember the data points from that second round. If you could just confirm, please.
Through you, Lord Mayor, that's indeed correct, CEO. It was effectively 55-45, where 55 were in favour or looking at a wetland, and 45% were looking to an ornamental lake. But upon further consultation and discussion, a hybrid solution, being a sustainable lake, was the one that all parties in general agreed with. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
So over how many people responded to that consultation?
I haven't got the data in front of me.
I think from memory it was 100.
Yeah, I can't talk.
So we're talking 100 people.
Thank you.
So
I think we'll
add that
move
in?
on. There's no point in relitigating the past. The decision's made, and we're going to deal with this motion now. All those in favour? I'm sorry? Yes, of course you may take it in parts.
This is an amendment, so we have to take it.
Yeah.
Apologies, Lord Mayor. Process. We're dealing with the amendment.
Yes, we're dealing with the amendment. That's
motion.
right. Sorry, we're
Just to
moving the
clarify.
amendment. But I'm going to take it in parts. Eventually, we will take it in parts when we've dealt with the amendment. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Look, Lord Mayor, I won't be supporting the amendment for no reason other than I won't be supporting the motion. The point that is made by my councillor colleague is that the differential between those who approved of the option that was endorsed by the majority and the one that's got up was about 20%. And there was no further consultation. The administration spoke to a couple of people and changed the community consultation outcome, with the result that some of my constituents argue that sweeping aside of the public consultation result was a breach of trust. But to the second point, and the important point that was raised a moment ago, I asked for this matter to be reviewed because the amounts of money involved are considerable. The administration's advice to us is that the cost of this enterprise will be $5 million. $2 million will be provided by the state. We have allocated $2.5 million in our renewal budget for the current financial year, but the cost is in excess of $5 million. There's a gap. And in addition, the administration warned us in QF4 and QF1 that gap would be greater. So we don't know how much it's going to cost. And further at committee, the administration pointed out to us that separate funding requests outside the scope of the lake renewal, that's what you're approving here, will need to be part of a future request to Council for the budget process. Asset renewal of the pathway network, landscaping, event assets on the island, water, hydraulic services, event spaces, and the renewal aspect of replacing the two footbridges to meet the current accessibility standards, new assets including landscaping, furniture, signage, and the upgrade component related to the bridge replacements were not considered. Now, that, I think, is a substantial sum of money. I raised it at committee. The administration promised me and all of you that it would come back to us by communication and tell us how much money that was so that we could make an informed decision, the kind of decision I would hope that Councillor Davis would like to make. We have heard nothing, naught from the administration. And the cost of this venture, this enterprise, which may well turn out to be foolhardy, is unknown. Lord Mayor, I have made a decision that I will not support this. That is the reason why I asked that this be reviewed, and I am disappointed that Councillor Davis doesn't understand that. But I do appreciate he is a new member of Council, and it does take time to get a grasp of Council business. Lord Mayor, please accept my apologies in being a dissenting voice in this, but I have no alternative.
I have a question. Your Worship. I have two questions, and it was the Deputy Lord Mayor said that the administration changed the outcome of community consultation. Is that what the administration did?
I'm not aware of any change in the outcome, but I think the condition of the pond may have predicated a certain outcome because the wetland was an option that was difficult to achieve. That was my understanding.
I have a follow-on question.
That is indeed correct, Lord Mayor. Yes.
I understand that the pond was leaking and was requiring tap water at great cost to replenish it, and it's one of the attractive facets that the community likes, so that was a view that it should be replaced and repaired and enhanced. That was my understanding.
I have a follow-up question, Your Worship. The Deputy Lord Mayor said that the administration in the Q3 and Q4 reports, Q4, Q1 reports, showed that there was an increase in the cost as to what was previously budgeted. Is that the case?
I think that it could be even more than that the longer we leave many of our capital works programs, because we're talking about a 20 to 25% escalation cost in all capital works.
Thank you. Up to 30%, Lord Mayor, is what I was informed today in relation to capital works. I think what Mr Macready was trying to explain to Council last week was that there are separate components. One is the lake and one is the Rymel Park Master Plan component. And what's been reported through our QF reporting, capital works reporting, is a mesh between the various elements due to commercial confidence relating to the total quantum. Because obviously if you state what the financial amount is that you have in your budget, then that's likely to come back the cost of the project. So it doesn't enable us to get value for money in some cases. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr Macready?
Through you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, CEO. So, firstly, just to reiterate, at the committee meeting I indicate that this is an endorsed project with a budget of $5 million, which is partially funded by the state government. The project we're talking to today is this, which is stage one. As the CEO has indicated, it's the broader master plan which talks to the other dollars, which is subject to council consideration through its budget process. So I think that's important to note. And just in regards to the consultation, we actually presented the information from the consultation to both Catatilla and Council on numerous occasions, and it was very, very close, and the determination was to look at a sustainable version of the lake, but more importantly to actually fix the lake because it is being topped up with gap water and potable water, and we want to look to harvest actual rainwater, stormwater.
I think that we should put this amendment. I know the cost is unpalatable.
I would like to speak to it, Lord Mayor, if that's
have
possible.
you spoken?
Not to. I asked a question. I'd like to speak against the amendment, and not because of anything but the fact that this is, I feel, not necessary. We had all the information to us from Catatilla. There were decisions that were based by evidence in what we could do to what the longevity of this pond, as you have called it, Lord Mayor. We took the advice of Catatilla. That is our body of a subsidiary that advises us, and as councillors, that's what we should do. We should take on the advice. Yes, we did go out to consultation. I believe from memory it was 100 people that were that did respond to the consultation. Maybe in the context of I didn't see that consultation, and if that's what we're going to debate about, then we should have had this discussion more deeper in the committee to have an understanding of the consultation. To bring forward an amendment that we could have had a discussion in committee and prolong a time in the chamber is not what I thought what these committees were about, but it looks like that's what it is going to be continuing happening. And I would appreciate that if members would like some more information about a consultation, to maybe have this discussion in the committees so we can have a clearer understanding about that if that's the issue. So I will speak against that. I will vote against this amendment.
So we'll put the amendment as printed of Part B acknowledges that the community consultation preferred another design option. If you're happy, we won't debate it again. All those in favour? I think I need... Is that a division?
Do you want them to do again, Lord Mayor?
Sorry?
They didn't put their hands up.
Could you just raise your hand so that we can count them? Sorry.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, can I just clarify? Are you seeking support for 1, then 2A and 2B, or are you taking this in parts? Because there was a request to do it in parts.
Just the amendment?
So that you can take it in parts. It's been a request and I think that's reasonable. So the amendment, please. All those in favour, please lift your arms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And against? Thank you. That is carried. And now I'll take it in parts. Did you want part 1? Can we put part 1 first? Notes the report is requested by council. All those in favour? That's carried with 1 against. And part 2 endorses entering into a tender process. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, members. And again, part B. Sorry? B. 2B. All those in favour? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's carried. 6. Thank you. That's carried, members. Thank you. From the Parklands Authority. It was my first meeting, and I should explain why the recommendations are split between 9.3 and 10.2 and 10.3. Firstly, these are the advice items from the committee where they were quorate. At the first meeting, we had 2 members who had not been gazetted, so that reduced the numbers. On top of that, we had 1 member who was absent. We were able to make determinations on these items, but then were inquorate for the next item. So if I could just ask you to note the following advice from Parklands Authority. 1, the Hutt Street Statement Project, and 2, the draft community land management plans. Councillor Siebentrit, are you happy to move both of them together? Both of them together. Councillor Davis, all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, members. I should point out that meeting was on the 23rd, and the reason that the items are split is that the 10.2, which is a strategic plan annual review update, is required by the Charter to be presented for approval separately on our agenda. So we are complying with the Charter. Then 10.3, the code amendment, has come separately because it was modified by an out-of-session decision based on a quorum being obtained out of session. The reason this manoeuvre had to be performed was that the deadline for the code amendment response is coming next week, and we would not have had time to have it sent to council otherwise than by this technique.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, did you include this one in your first?
I'm sorry. I should ask you to move also, Councillor Siebentrit, Part 3, which is the strategic plan annual review update. Would you move?
Yes, happy to
Thank
move
you.
that.
And seconded by Councillor Davis. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. And just working through the agenda, the next item is, it's out of order, and I would hope that in future we would manage to aggregate the elements so that the agenda is easier to follow. But in the meantime, 10.1, which relates to the working group for the cycling strategy.
Yes, Lord Mayor, I'd like to move a procedural motion.
Councillor Elliott, yes?
Yes, I move that the motion be laid on the table.
That's a procedural motion, seconded by Councillor Noon. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Of course. I'm sorry?
I beg your pardon, Lord Mayor. I thought on procedural matters that there was no division possible.
This is a formal motion, and I think you can always call a division, can't you?
For a motion to be laid on the table, don't you actually have to have a motion? And in this case, there is no motion.
Well, that's true.
So in which case, I'm happy to move that we go into voting, that we appoint 2 council members.
Yeah, there's no motion.
Yes. I think you meant to say that the matter should lay on the table, not the motion. I didn't hear what you said. Was that what you said, Councillor Elliott?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. That was my intention for my...
Yes. So if it was the matter, it does not require the motion, and it was carried.
So to explain to the new council members, the laying the matter on the table means?
It means that it's not debated again at this time.
For another 12 months?
Yes. No, till the term.
For 12 months?
Anybody at any time can pull a matter off the table.
Sorry, excuse me, members, through the chair. When a matter is laid on the table, it's lifted from the table by a motion on notice moved at a future council meeting. There's no time period for it. All it takes is a motion put in the agenda that the matter be lifted, then the item can be discussed again. That is what it would take.
So it will remain otherwise on the table throughout the term. It's not lifted.
So,
other than lifted, it can remain on the table.
And that would mean that no one can speak to it right now, no one can discuss it, no one can say why they wanted the matter to be laid at the table. So there's nothing there for the ratepayers to understand why this
Point
is
of order. I think...
Asking a question.
I think you're making a political point.
I'm asking a question.
I think it's true to say that there was a review in the documents after a year, and there were members of the working party who met on 2 occasions, and the original setup was decided on the basis of a review after 1 year, which has occurred. But we haven't had a review.
It didn't work for 12 months. It only had 2 meetings.
I understand that it had been in place for a year from the council decision.
Through you, Lord Mayor, that's indeed correct. It did only sit for 2 terms, and that COVID was the one that actually stopped the attendance. And naturally, the 12-month window has expired, and that's why the report was here today for consideration.
Forgive me, Lord Mayor, procedural. The motion has been laid on the table, and
we're not voting. We're not debating anything.
Well, I'm just saying we're discussing something which can't be discussed because it's being laid on the table. If I'm sure Councillor Curtis has got questions, she can ask administration after the council meeting.
So, excuse me, Lord Mayor, am I not allowed to ask questions in the chamber?
Well, it would be convenient to ask the question.
Do I have to ask them as directed by Councillor Snape? Do I need to?
I think that we'll stop sniping across the table, both of you, please, and we'll just come to order and recognise that there was a procedural motion, and we will.
Can I ask where in the standing orders that is, that a motion lay on the table?
I'll get the page number for you later, but I think you should carry on to item 10.2, and you can ask that question at the end as a question without notice.
Okay. Could government
10.2, which is the strategic plan annual review, which is a procedural matter which has been processed through the Parklands Authority, and I'm asking that progress updates provided for the last year be noted, and we approve the annual revision of the strategic plan. Moved by Councillor Snape, seconded by Councillor Stephen. Is there anybody in an opposing view? All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The Adelaide Centre the Parklands Authority met on the 23rd when they were in quorate for this item, which was important enough to be managed out of session, so it was only finalised by the 27th of February. This is most irregular, and one would not normally want this to appear on the agenda at such short notice, and it's a disappointment to us all in that you've not had time to read the document properly. I understand that it's been circulated this afternoon, and I think there are copies of it on your tables. The Parklands Authority formed an opinion that advice should be given to the state government and the council about the code amendment. The advice essentially related to the fact that the code amendment was not necessary, that it was already possible through the planning system to build a new swimming pool and build the items that were ancillary to a swimming pool. That is, a shop and a cafe, changing rooms and health and welfare facilities. The actual code amendment proposition included items such as removal of the capacity to limit the footprint increase and removing the capacity to limit the car parking area. So it was regarded by the Parklands Authority as weakening the position, and unfortunately weakening the position of the government, because the newly elected government made an absolute commitment to reduce the size of the footprint and not increase car parking, so that it was an anomalous request that did not comply with state government policy and would have been counterproductive for us to approve. So the basis of the code amendment response was to acknowledge that the matter was not required, the amendments were not necessary, and were contrary to the government's commitment to the electorate. So that was packaged in the way that you can see on your table, and forms advice to both council and the government. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, a question. I had the opportunity to read this when I sat down, and very quickly at that. Are you saying that if this council proposes an alternative motion to the one that the administration has placed before us, asking in some way for you to be authorised to write to the consultation, copy to the Premier and others as planned, incorporating this advice, then there would be no need for any comment on any aspect, including footprint and so forth?
I understand that the council should take the opportunity to endorse the views, because the Parklands Authority's advice is directed at both partners in Parklands management.
Thank you, and through the Chair. In effect, what the work of Cattle Tiller is to provide advice both to Council and to the state government. So it could be taken in response to the question, and the view of administration would be that these are two separate advices. They would both be received in the consultation. The Lord Mayor, as presiding member of Cattle Tiller, would forward the advice of Cattle Tiller. Similarly, the advice that you have attached with this report that Council has previously considered through committee would form the submission by Council to the consultation. In effect, the state government receives both reports, both summaries, one from Council and one from Cattle Tiller.
And Part 2, Deputy Lord Mayor, actually allows the CEO to amend the draft, and that was in the original recommendation. Okay, but I'm understanding that the submissions are different. Is that correct? That is to say, one submission, that is whatever goes forward for the Parklands Authority, and whatever is proposed by the administration, detailed in the executive summary and the discussion pages, are in fact different submissions in substance? I think the advice from the Parklands Authority is slightly more hard-edged,
That was my view.
In terms of comments, and the council could choose to reflect the comments from their advisory body in their own submission.
Well, look, Lord Mayor, on that basis, and that I think was the view that I formed after reading that resolution of Cadler-Tiller. So I wonder if I might, as a means of moving this forward, I note that we have been meeting for 40-odd minutes now. In the interest of moving it forward, if I could propose an alternative motion, and that is that Council notes and accepts the advice of the Cadler-Tiller Parklands Authority and requests the Lord Mayor lodge with the Code Amendment consultation copied to the Premier and other relevant ministers, a letter setting out the views expressed in the advice from Cadler-Tiller and supported by the resolution of Council of January 23rd, 2023, on behalf of Council and the Cadler-Tiller Parklands Authority. Maybe I should put that last bit in further up.
Could we endorse, Council notes and endorses the advice? Would that be a way of making it?
Yes, yes, I'm happy with that. So as an alternative motion, and please correct me if I don't have the intention of what I'm trying to say and what you're trying to say, this is in fact the only motion that we're considering, not 1, 2, 3, but 3 is the motion.
Thank you, through the chair. If I could just clarify, Deputy Lord Mayor, what you're seeking to achieve is the Cadler-Tiller advice being the endorsed council position, and that position being presented back in relation to the code amendment. Is that what you're trying to achieve? Correct. Right.
And Lord Mayor, if I may add, if it is my understanding that you said that the advice of our authority is more hard-edged, and that was my sense, then I would prefer that advice went forward rather than the previous motion, as this would be an alternative motion.
Sorry, Deputy Lord Mayor, it might be helpful if we just say that Council endorses the advice.
Yes, that's fine.
I apologise, it just takes a while to just make sure we've got the syntax and the English correct. So it's no longer an item 3. It's just standalone. If we could just hold on for a moment.
Lord Mayor, while the syntax is being adjusted, can we ask a question of the administration around this? Or am I jumping in too early?
Can I just ask if we have a seconder for this? Councillor Snape, and Councillor Siebentrit has a question.
Just like to put, I hope this is highly unusual that we receive information like this at short notice, because there's a lot here to process, and what's a really complex issue. I've got to admit I'm really surprised at what's been put here. Can the administration advise?
With it, don't worry.
Can the administration advise on how material there is a difference between what we've been presented with here versus what was in the original motion? I'd really like an explanation or description of what the difference is.
Could you respond to that, please?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. To take the first part of your comment, we'd also point out, as the Lord Mayor framed, is in the time frame of needing to response and cattle tiller meeting on the Thursday, not having quorum, needing to use 4.84 of the Charter to coordinate their response to be able to submit in time. It is very rare to have a scenario where we wouldn't have alignment to get you advice sooner. That notwithstanding, there is a significant difference in the advice from cattle tiller as to that of the administration, and some of the materiality goes to the intent of submission, in that the submission in the papers before you deal with a number of the technical matters that could be addressed in the context of feedback that the state government will receive to consider amendments to the code. So in adopting a position that is purely the cattle tiller position, there's a significant body of content prepared by the administration that would not go forward as part of council's submission. And so that's a depth of content that would not be considered. In the context of having two submissions, you would have both the council administration content as well as the cattle tiller advice. The materiality of the question is fundamentally the cattle tiller advice is saying there's no need. The difference with the council submission is it's pointing out particular areas throughout the code amendment that should be considered for revision.
So it is irregular and it's not what one would want. So I apologise.
Look, Lord Mayor, I think that covers it all pretty much. It's probably a bit more articulate than I had originally explained, but essentially that is what I'm saying. And the difference for members in what's being proposed, as the administration has just advised, is that the council submission was addressing the code amendment, pointing out where it could be improved, what needed to be changed. The advice of our Parklands Authority is that there is no need for that code amendment, that it is possible for the government to consider the new aquatic centre within the context of the current planning laws. And they constrain the government in terms of what goes on that site and limits it to certain dimensions and certain building characteristics, while at the same time continuing to afford protections to Park 2. I think it is a superior response, and I'm not reflecting poorly on the administration. The administration has been working on the view that we would respond to the code amendment proposals. This one is the considered advice of the Parklands Authority, which is saying to us there's no need to go down that path. The capacity of the government to make the decisions in relation to the aquatic centre and its replacement is already there, and moreover, the provisions of the current planning laws provide certain guarantees in respect to what goes there. That seems to me to be a really strong approach, and additionally we reflect on also the decision of Council on the 31st of January, which expressed support to residents. Now, I add also that what I have done in proposing this alternative motion is asked that the Lord Mayor, obviously in consultation with the CEO and the administration, write to the Code Amendment Inquiry and the ministers as both the presiding member of the Cadler-Tiller Parklands Authority and as the presiding member of Council. I think that carries some weight, and I have an expectation that the Premier, on receipt of a letter from the Lord Mayor, will probably want to respond to her directly, and I'd be happy for her to explain this Council's views to not only the Premier but the ministers involved.
Carmel must be next. But it might
be invisible.
Yeah, slightly. But point 3 doesn't. Can we completely redo that? Because that's request the Lord Mayor lodge the code amendment copies to the relevant minister a letter setting out the views expressed. Sure. Can we? Isn't it request the Lord Mayor write to the relevant minister?
Can I assist? What I was intending to say was the Lord Mayor lodge
No, she's not lodging anything.
Well, you are lodging with the
No,
code
this-
with the code amendment.
She's not
consultation.
I think we're not going to argue about one word. We understand it's going to be a letter and we put in the post. I don't think we need to argue about whether it's lodged post.
No, yeah, just request the Lord Mayor write to the relevant minister, echoing the views expressed in the advice of Caterpillar.
I think that we had a motion that was delineated, let's say, not even written, by the Deputy Lord Mayor. Are you prepared to accept these amendments, Deputy Lord Mayor?
Well, so long as, Lord Mayor, you're writing to the relevant minister as well as to the code amendment consultation, which we would like to receive the views of this council.
So let me just suggest that we either are going to support this or not. Does anyone want to speak against this motion? No? Councillor, yes. Abrahimzadeh, Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
I must be invisible. Look, I just think this is a really poor governance process to be handed this on the night and expect us. If I was sitting on a board, I would be able to abstain from this particular decision, but I've got to make a decision on this, which I feel really, really vulnerable here. And I really supported the actual report that admin actually put up. And now I've got this piece of paper and I don't know really what I'm actually voting on. And at the end of the day, I guess my question is, are they opposing views? Are we just saying that this is a stronger position than what we've put forward? But if there's any opposing views here, and I really think that this is actually poor.
I think we all agree this is suboptimal, and none of us like doing this, but we have two choices. We either put in a submission or we don't. We're either at the table or we're not. And my view is that although it's suboptimal, we have to put in a submission.
But are they opposing? I want to know
No,
if they're
they're
opposing.
not. They're just hardline, more hardline. So,
Lord Mayor, sorry, I just want, since you are giving the directive here, is it still there? You need to write. I just want to hear your views on all of that, and that is suitable to you, because I don't know if you had a discussion already with the Deputy Lord Mayor.
I was on the Parklands Authority and we had a long discussion, but we couldn't make a decision as we were in quorate. And it just was, I was of the view very strongly that this code amendment wasn't necessary. There were planners, architects, landscape designers, and they all agreed around the table that it was unnecessary. We've subsequently had submissions from members of the community in the North Adelaide Society who agree it's unnecessary, and they have got their legal representation planning supporters as well. I think, knowing the government's commitment, they made a commitment, and I suspect that the bureaucracy, let's say, is trying to make sure everything's easy and straightforward. But I think the government was behaving with integrity when they promised they wouldn't increase the footprint and they wouldn't enlarge the car park. And I just think that the way this is being handled, it's not good for the government either.
This motion is suitable to you?
Or a comment?
I'd like to speak to the amendment. I don't think we should support this. I mean, I'm sure Your Worship, and I do take your comments on board, that it may not be technically necessary to respond, but I don't have the arguments and the advice upon which Caterpillar has formed that view. We have a lengthy submission from the administration, which is very well prepared, which engages in that process, sets out the desires of this council that we articulated in our, what are they called again? Committee. And we discussed through those reasons, and I think it's well articulated. I think that the point will be made, though, and if you read the second page, is that the presiding member is going to write to the Premier of South Australia, and it's also going to make those points, the fact that this code amendment isn't necessary in their own right. I don't necessarily think that our Lord Mayor needs to come on, I suppose, as a big brother to sit over the top of and simply just echo what Caterpillar is saying. I think they can stand on their own 2 feet. I think that this council has been asked to engage with the state government process, and we should do just that. And on the advice that's been prepared for us, whether it's not technically necessary, well, that might be the case, but look, the government's going to proceed with the code amendment anyway. And so I don't necessarily think that that's the strongest point that this council can be making. And so my view is that the presiding member of Caterpillar can make those submissions. Those points will be made to the government, and then that is the appropriate body. But I really don't like, I'm not exactly sure the detail and the grounds upon which Caterpillar has formed that opinion, and I wouldn't be in support of echoing their views when I haven't seen that data. But I think members should rest assured that point will be made nonetheless.
Lord Mayor, a question for you. So, noting my understanding is your point, you're supporting part 3 of the motion, and certainly echo Councillor Davis's comments that there was a well thought through process and discussion, I think, with the administration. How will you be tackling any differences between the Caterpillar advice versus what came through from administration?
My view is that the amendments that the Parklands Authority made to the submission from the administration just made it more pithy and hard-edged and actually clarified it. I thought that it was the text and the subject matter is unchanged. It's just better ordered and plainer for the reader. I think you are summing up.
Right.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm sorry. You are not summing up. You are reserved your right. Please.
Yeah. It was Councillor Martin who moved the initial motion anyway. Look, I just want to echo the Lord Mayor's comments around our general dissatisfaction with how this has come to the Chamber. It was a very unique circumstance with the lack of quorum. So I would urge members not to, I don't use the word punish, but not to look down on this well regarded advice, I would suggest, from Caterpillar, and look down on that advice because of the way it's come to you, if that makes sense. The risk, we have some risks here, and the risk is if the state government chooses to go, forges ahead with the code changes, there is a risk that we could have a significantly increased car park. There's a risk that we could have a larger building site as well. So we need to take a firm stand. You all know my position. I don't want it there at all. So the fact that I'm here advocating this position shows the fact that I've had to compromise and come to the table myself. And so I just really do support the Caterpillar advice. Those of you who are a bit unsure and are a bit, as I said, didn't like how it arrived, I agree, that's appalling, but please don't punish the advice because of that. Thank you.
Your electorate?
Lord Mayor, just on a procedural, I've noticed that in the chamber that Councillor Snape was talking to Councillor Noon, we are meant to direct to you. Is that correct in the chamber? I felt like he was talking to her, but we should be.
I think
Carmel's got a very friendly face.
I think that the councillor was speaking across the chamber and might have been directing it globally.
Because I don't think anyone is
this a question?
I know that was a question because I don't think anyone's not taking on how important this subject matter this is. And I don't think, I think the way it has been handed to us, the way that we are dealing with it, the way what happened with Caterpillar, the way that the process has been quite short in the consultation, it has been a little bit of a dog's breakfast, I do admit.
Thank you.
But this is all we can do at this present time. I understand that some of my colleagues would need further information to wrap their head around it. This is all we have at this present moment, and this is our only way forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davis.
Wait, can I just clarify, does this motion replace the officer's recommendation to submit our own? So we're not submitting... That's not what that says. So just to be clear, we're not submitting the officer's suggested recommendation at all.
I would be happy for us to submit lots of submissions about this, because we could all write letters, we can all add our voice, and we can all say the same thing.
No, that doesn't quite answer the question, Your Worship. Does this motion not include all of the submissions and recommendations that our administration, or is this just saying, does this motion that says you don't have to do it, rather than engaging with the state government process? Is that we're completely not engaging with the state government process?
I understand we're engaging with the process fully.
So are we not submitting?
Thank you, through the chair. There is an opportunity to provide technical advice. So in the table attached to the report is a series of technical advice that could be presented to the code amendment consultation process.
That doesn't answer that. Does this motion send the letter which is drafted by our CEO, or does this only note what they've done, which is notes this document, 2, endorses the advice of the Caterpillar Parklands and requests that we write to the code amendment on this? Is the CEO going to write to the government with that set out in attachment A?
The previous advice before the amendment was that the CEO be authorised to amend and finalise and forward the submission to the Adelaide Aquatic Code Amendment consultation. This one has removed that opportunity, but there is still the collaboration as part of our normal process.
That's spot on. Yeah, that's how I'm.
The original motion was to authorise the CEO to amend the draft letter. I think that it's probably more relevant to have one letter from the Lord Mayor, but there will still be an opportunity for the Council to have a consultation response, which will be the technical documentation which is in the enclosures. I don't think we can clarify it to your satisfaction. I'm not sure that you will be able to vote for this.
That's the whole problem, Lord Mayor, is that people need to know what they're voting for. The people want to vote for it, but they need to carry out what they're voting for.
Deputy Lord Mayor, I think we're going to have to amend this if possible and get through this, otherwise we won't be able to...
Lord Mayor, look, can I assist our colleagues and suggest that the administration undertake that the content of attachment 1 will be varied accordingly and attached to your letter. That, I think, would overcome all of the concerns of my colleagues. That would mean that your letter, incorporating the advice of the Caterpillar Parklands Authority, would go forward, and we would attach, varied accordingly, the advice of the administration.
So I think that we have to reach a conclusion on this. This is a variation of the motion that has been moved. I can understand that you are not prepared to accept this, Councillor Davis, but I think that we have to move on, otherwise we'll be here all night.
Lord Mayor,
no, my point is well made. Like, I just don't know what we're talking about, and we're just not doing what the administration has put forward.
It's our prerogative to do what we wish to do, not necessarily what the administration wants us to do. And if we make a decision, then the letters will go forward. I think that we have to call a conclusion here, otherwise we'll be here all night.
May I sum up, Lord Mayor?
I think the only person who has not spoken is Councillor Abrahimzadeh, and I think he should be allowed to speak because he's been waiting patiently and waving.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I appreciate it. Lord Mayor, I rise to speak against this alternate motion. And the reason for that is because we have a state government that is come along and they're willing to spend over $80 million on a community asset. A community asset that I've been a regular user of for over a decade now. And I've got great appreciation for all the programs that it offers. And what we have been doing here as a council is, through all these discussions, we've been essentially trying to, the way I see it and the way some of my ratepayers have described it to me, is that we've been thinking of different ways to put barriers around this particular project and this investment. So I do rise to speak against this, and I think that if we want to collaborate with state government, if we want to get a good outcome for the community, then we ought to look at our approach and approach this differently. Because if the state government sees us essentially ruling with an iron fist and saying, no, we're not willing to negotiate, or we're not willing to budge, then we'll essentially be sidelined and we won't have any outcomes for our community.
Thank you.
Yes, Lord Mayor. Look, can I reiterate, this is not about saying no to the government, it's saying yes, and these are matters about which we're concerned. It's about saying that in the context of the advice of the experts, the authority on which we rely, Cadler Tiller, and incorporating, as I have proposed and as the administration accepts, that we include attachment A varied accordingly to reflect this motion. It's pretty straightforward. I understand that members are uncomfortable with the speed with which this has happened, but you need to understand this advice has come to us in the past 24 hours, if I'm to understand it, Lord Mayor, and we need to have a decision tonight in order to meet the deadline of March 6th for the close of this matter. I commend this to you. I think this is the best we can do.
Can we please play before? Can we say the administration will include the content? Include the content of attachment A.
All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you.
Lord Mayor, can I? Oh, sorry, division.
Was there a division call? Yeah. Councillor Snape?
Sorry, members, a division has been called. Would all members in favour of the motion please rise and stay standing until all names have been called? Councillor Elliott, Councillor Kouros, Councillor Noon, Councillor Lee, Councillor Siebentritt, Councillor Snape, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Giles.
Lord Mayor, could I ask that maybe in future, if all amendments can be circulated prior to the council meeting? No, there was nothing circulated. It's just for members to have an understanding, to know what they're voting for, because it appears that we've been debating this and chopping and changing it, and English and all of that. Thank you.
Association 10.4. It is normal, I understand, for the Lord Mayor to be appointed as the delegate to the LGA. I can understand this is a hotly fought for position, and so I'd be grateful to have your support and to have a nomination for the deputy. So, Councillor Snape.
I was going to nominate Councillor Carmel Noon.
Do you accept that?
I do.
Deputy Lord Mayor?
I'm happy to nominate you, Lord Mayor, if that's what you want, but is there a procedural that precedes the vote on this?
I think there's no remuneration. And we could do point one first if you want. Yes. And then do these one at a time. We could do them one at a time. I don't think there's a remuneration, so... No, not at all. But if you want to have them move that one. So we have to agree to support a delegate and deputy delegate. Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Snape. All those in favour? That's carried. Then to appoint myself as the delegate.
So we have to call for nominations as the delegate. I don't know.
Are there any other nominations?
As delegate.
for the main delegate as opposed to the deputy delegate?
Yeah, I nominate Councillor Carl.
As the delegate? Yes. Okay.
She's unclear what the difference is.
And the deputy.
If you really want it, Lord Mayor, I just.
No, it's fine. I understand what a hotly contested position it is. And do we have a deputy, please, then? Because the councillor said she would be the deputy. Do we have another nomination?
Suggest as a procedure, we wait on the result. If you're nominating and Carmel's nominating for the main position, we wait until the result of that.
No. We just need a nomination, not a discussion.
Lord Mayor, can we just clarify, where are we up to? Is it number 2 or number 3? I think that's a source of confusion.
We have now got Councillor Noon as the delegate.
Okay.
I'm happy to be the deputy, not the delegate.
It's not much conspiracy
Can I suggest I am the delegate and you be the deputy delegate?
Done, that's what I thought.
What did we vote on previously then?
We have, please, councillor, we have decided we will have delegates.
No, what was the motion that we put our hand up for?
To appoint a delegate and deputy delegate.
Oh, so we moved one.
We've moved one.
Okay.
So now thank you, councillor. We're going to, I think there is only one nomination for the delegate, part 2, and there is one nomination for the deputy delegate. That's Councillor Noon. So unless there are other nominees, I think those nominations were successful and unopposed. Motion now that the Lord Mayor will be appointed as the City of Adelaide delegate and Councillor Noon will be appointed as the City of Adelaide deputy delegate. And that's moved by Councillor Siebentrit, seconded by Councillor Kouros. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, unanimously. Now, can I point out the Lord Mayor's report is rather brief. I've attended 2 days of training where I met more than 50 mayors at Local Government House. I've attended Garrock, an Adelaide Parklands Authority meeting, as you know, Schützenfest, and probably the most exciting thing of the whole fortnight was going to the North Adelaide Precinct Association, where we had a tour of the Piccadilly Cinema, and I think that was undoubtedly the most inspiring tour to see how much love and attention and funds have been poured into the Piccadilly Cinema. They have uncovered a mural on the stairs, and the City of Adelaide Heritage Fund is sponsoring the restoration through Art Lab. Can I recommend that you go and buy a choc top or watch a film at the Piccadilly? 12.1. Would someone like to note my comments? Councillor Snape, thank you. Councillor Abrazimbaday, thank you. All those in favour? That's carried, thank you. 12.1, which is just to note our activities. Moved by Councillor Abrahimzadeh, seconded by Councillor Snape. All those in favour? That's carried, thank you. And now, questions on notice. I think you had a question, Councillor Davis.
Lord Mayor, I have a question without notice.
No? Motions on...
Lord Mayor, question without notice.
Question, yes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is to administration, through you, Chair, is can we have an update in regards to what I believe is a Gouger Street zebra crossing? This is coming off from Moonter Street. It's my understanding that perhaps that is on the radar, and if I can get some an update verbally to the room about that project.
Thank you. Could you answer that, please?
Through you, Lord Mayor, happy to provide advice. The crossing you're talking about, which is being looked at, is adjacent to Field Street and Moonter Street, and we're happy to provide advice.
Okay, and my second question is there any... I'm really excited that that's happening. You know, I do love my zebra and wombat crossings. I was wondering, is there any scope to upgrade this from a zebra crossing to a wombat crossing, or is that a whole different kettle of fish? For clarification, a wombat crossing is a raised zebra crossing, so it acts a bit like a speed bump as well as being the striped, like zebra-like crossing.
I think we might have to take that on notice because it's a technical question with some financial implications. So we will take that on notice. Councillor Kouros?
Sorry, are we still doing questions without notice? Could I have an update from administration in regards to a motion that was, I think it was back in 2019, or I haven't got the date here in front of me. It was moved by the Deputy Lord Mayor at the time, Councillor Hyde, supporting the homeless, which is an update on the business plan funding to fight homelessness that is equivalent to the funding which remain unspent per the decision on the 12th of March 2019, allocated $200,000 towards implementing the findings of the report. Do you remember?
I think we'll take that on notice. It's a little complicated.
That is on notice. If I could have an update on this motion, that would be great.
So thank you, Councillor. We'll take that on notice. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question relates to the City of Adelaide's carbon neutral accreditation. The City of Adelaide Climate Active Public Disclosure Statement for 2020 to 2021 indicates that 20.3% of our carbon offsets credits were purchased from Verra, a global carbon credit accreditation organisation. However, on the 17th of February, The Guardian reported that more than 90% of Verra's carbon credits are likely phantom credits and do not represent genuine carbon reductions. So this has clear implications for our city's carbon neutral status. However, the 2021 to 2022 public disclosure statement does not appear to be published yet. Will the administration advise how many carbon credits are still being purchased from Verra and what actions are being taken to ensure genuine carbon credit offsets being purchased?
I think we should take that on notice. It's technical and has numerical responses, so we'll take that on notice. If there are no other questions on notice, we have motions.
Yes, Lord Mayor, sorry to be a pest.
No, keep.
I do have a motion without notice. With regards to the Hutt Street Entry Statement project, I would like to move that Council asks administration to present a range of fit-for-purpose shared use path designs which prioritise tree retention and present those options to Council as a matter of urgency. I'm happy to provide a written copy if that's preferable.
Sorry, I don't... I don't know. Is there an urgency?
There was an
urgency on this, though.
Sorry?
It can be done in 2 weeks.
I don't understand what the motion is. Sorry.
I think this relates to the entry statement in Hutt Street, which has been designed with some areas of conflict between trees and bicycles.
Oh.
If I may speak to the motion.
Part of master planning?
Yeah.
Can I ask if it's been seconded? Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to the seconder. This has been raised as a matter of concern, as I don't believe that the City of Adelaide should be using projects in the parklands as a precedent to remove trees. I am informed that some of the trees are in poor health, but I do believe that that should be a matter dealt with under our tree management plan as it already exists. We shouldn't be seen we shouldn't be or be seen to be opportunistic about the removal of trees for the sake of infrastructure. I think it sets an unhealthy precedent for the way that this council starts our term with managing the parklands and our vegetation.
Unless anyone has a contrary view.
Can we have some comment from administration on this, please?
This was a matter that came up at the Parklands Authority, and I think there were 15 trees suggested for removal to allow a bike path.
Isn't that coming to council for consideration? Isn't that the
It
usual
will.
procedure?
It will be coming to council.
So, why do we need a motion if it's coming to council for consideration?
I think because it was to make sure that when it comes to the committee, it will have the information available for you in your committee.
It will be.
If I may respond, Lord Mayor, is that appropriate?
Sorry. That's all right. I think it's a fairly straightforward request.
Can I just ask, as a point of clarification, is your worship going to accept motions, like, first of all, is this, in your opinion, urgent? And are you happy to accept any motion without notice? And on what
if I could
basis?
rule on the urgency of this, I think that we have money that was been given to us by the state, and I'm fearful that that money will go back if we delay any of those projects. We've had it for more than a year, I think, and that I'm very keen that we should spend all the money we have and not risk losing it. So the design has to be finalised quickly.
Was there a timeline on that money?
Through you, Lord Mayor, there is. It was actually a submission that was given to us as part of the $3 million for the state government during the election period, so effectively 30th of June. But in the body of the report, it does say that we will be coming back to you in April for consideration. So there will be no decisions on trees, and we will be coming back with revised designs.
To confirm, we're talking about the election promise of $3 million to Hutt Street and $1 million to Melbourne Street. So then you're bringing in Melbourne Street at the same time?
Melbourne Street will be progressed. I'll give you the dates in regards to this, but this one was specific in regards to the 3 million because of the scale. 3 million is a lot harder to spend than 1 million, and we wish to get it resolved, and also we're wishing to get out to consultation. But I note the motion without notice. The only issue would be is in regards to urgency. Just note that we're bringing it back in April.
Just flag that even though Melbourne Street's only 1 million, it's still urgent as well.
Melbourne Street's just as urgent. Unless there's a contrary view, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members.